Imagine for a moment you bought a home, a historic home, a beautiful home, on a hilltop in what looks like to be a pretty decent neighborhood, and you intend to fix this home up, get it up to code, potentially even rent it out in the future, but then one day the city just obliterates your home. The city of Atlanta targets you, seemingly without any notice, only for you to find out later that you ended up getting the notices, and by getting them, I mean they were sent to the completely wrong address, they had nothing to do with your home, and then your home is gone. Then you get a bill from the demolition company. They demand payment from you, they demand that you fork over the costs for your unwarranted destruction, so you refuse to pay. You go to the local news. The local news does a segment not just about your home, but about how the city of Atlanta completely bungles this in other instances, leading to similar results. Then it gets the attention, and you hope the situation will be resolved. Well, unfortunately, that's not the story today. Unfortunately, in this update video that we're doing on a story that we previously covered on this channel, not only has the attention not resulted in a positive resolution, but now the city of Atlanta is deciding that if they're not going to be paid for their unprompted, unwarranted, and illegal demolition of this poor man's home, that they are going to seize the property, foreclose on it, in order to compensate for their mistake. Now we're going to get into this, but before we do, I just want to say thank you to everybody who signed up over at actualjusticeword.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
And thank you to the podcast listeners, Spotify, Apple, and Google's podcasting platform.
Yeah, and Justin, I'm standing right now on Lawton Street, but the paperwork for the demolition of what's now this vacant lot, it was for Lawton Avenue. That's a different place a mile away. But instead of correcting the mistake, the city is now trying to foreclose on this property to pay for that demo bill.
So as laid out by the local news reporter, this is something that he's covered before and many other instances. They ended up sending out a bunch of notices to the wrong address related to the potential demolition of this property. Now, they did not actually get any returns from that, which tends to happen when you mail stuff to a place over a mile away, and that ultimately ended up leading to the destruction of the home. And as you can see, it is still in complete and utter disrepair. It's a total loss for this man who was trying to do right, trying to start some kind of business, trying to work with, I believe, one of his relatives in order to get this place up and running and take advantage of the burgeoning real estate market that is going on in the city of Atlanta. However, doing business in an area that is run by buffoonish Democrats often leads to terrible results, and this is where we're at in terms of this story.
I'm not going to let the city take this from me. I'm going to fight them tooth and nail.
It's just a lot now. The city demolished the Southwest Atlanta house. But Everett Tripodis was served with a lawsuit from the city of Atlanta saying they intend to foreclose and take the land.
When I saw that it came from the city, I was quite excited. Maybe it was a letter of apology. Maybe it was a check. Maybe they're going to justly compensate me. I opened it up and realized that they were suing me.
First of all, as noted in the previous video that I did on this story, Everett sounds like a preacher, and his cadence I find incredibly amusing, but to the heart of the issue, he's 100% right in that he should fight the city of Atlanta tooth and nail for his property. They made the mistake. They made the error. This isn't the first time that they've made this mistake, so of course his recourse is to file a civil suit against him, but of course Atlanta, being the absolute insane place that it is, has actually initiated foreclosure proceedings against his property, and it looks like the foreclosure proceedings are going to go forward prior to whatever resolution of his lawsuit. And this is really odd because, as we'll find out later on in the segment, this specific instance, among many others, has actually led to hearings among the Atlanta City Council in order to determine whether or not their code enforcement is completely out of line, acting ridiculously, and not giving proper notice, which, by the way, considering they sent the letters to the wrong address, I think is a foregone conclusion that that will result in them being deemed at fault. But Atlanta wants to pay the stupid bill rather than paying it out of their own pocket because they're the ones at fault. They've decided that the only resolution is to seize this person's property, steal it from him in order to pay off the bill for demolition that never should have occurred in the first place, that he had no part in. It is absolute madness to me in this country country that somebody can make this kind of mistake at a government office. It can result in the destruction of a home, bulldozed, completely wiped out. While this guy, by the way, was coming back from like a Home Depot or Lowe's, I forget exactly where, with materials to improve the property, and then they bill you for that, and then they charge you interest for not paying that bill in a timely manner.
When I saw that came from the city, I was quite excited. Maybe it was a letter of apology. Maybe it was a check. Maybe they're going to justly compensate me. I opened it up and realized that they were suing me.
Listen, I feel Everett's pain right here. He has this thing happen to him. It's clearly and obviously the city acting in the wrong. It gets covered by the local news, triggers a hearing. There's all these things supposedly in motion in order to get him restored, brought back to whole. And then he gets the letter from the city, and it turns out they're suing him.
We told you in a Channel 2 Action News story in March how before tearing down the house, the city sent its notices that an inspector found the house unfit for habitation to wrong addresses. Certified letters were returned to sender. Even the official demolition hearing notice was for Lawton Avenue, zip code 30314. But Tripodis' home is on Lawton Street, 30310, 1.4 miles away. Our Channel 2 Action News story got the attention of City Council. A review of the city's demolition or in-room process reported to Council in April found that some property owners were unaware their homes were up for demolition.
If I'm being perfectly honest, Everett is being a little bit too calm about this, because had this happened to me or many of you out there in the audience, you would be absolutely livid. You'd blow a gasket if you had any gaskets left. Unfortunately, they were bulldozed by the city of Atlanta, and you would go after them in every way possible, not just go back to the same local news reporter to talk about the issue at hand. Now, we're trying to give this a little bit of spotlight, a little bit of coverage, so hopefully the attention ends up bringing a positive resolution. But the thing is, this is something that happens in the city of Atlanta repeatedly, and a lot of people who don't get this level of attention have basically no recourse. And even this person, who's gotten a little bit of coverage of his story, of his tale, is still up a creek without a paddle, considering the fact that they're trying to take his property before the civil suit goes through. They filed the civil suit, and wouldn't you know it, it turns out they have way more time to hear that. It's way more rushed than his actual lawsuit, so he's probably going to end up with a foreclosure on his record, damaging his credit, all because of a situation that never should have occurred in the first place.
But now, even after those problems were flagged to city leaders, Tripodis got served with this lawsuit. The city alleging that, quote, the property should be sold at public outcry unless one or more of the interested parties tenders the full redemption amount. That amount, with interest, it's now more than $68,000 in demolition costs.
Again, it's one thing for you to say that this house is unlivable. It's one thing for you to issue a demolition order or give somebody time to come up to code. But if you don't inform the person properly, you end up in a situation where you're destroying the property, what he poured his blood, sweat, and tears into, his savings into, in order to acquire. And again, it's just the most ridiculous thing humanly possible. It's completely unfair. It's completely illogical. And the city, at some points, kind of acknowledges it. However, they're still fighting the lawsuit. They're still trying to get the property, and it's just shameful in every possible way. They'll likely get this and sell this to a much lower rate to a different person. They'll end up building something on this, and all this should have never happened, and it sends a chilling effect through people in the city of Atlanta, knowing that if you put money into a property, a clerical error can not only result in the destruction of that property, but then you'll be charged a bill for the demolition, and then on top of that, to wrap it all up in a bow, you'll also be sued by the city for not paying the bill for the unlawful demolition. This story is just madness in every possible way. They do an investigation, they review it, they find out that there are many instances of them not properly and adequately informing the homeowner or the property owner that their place is up for demolition, yet they press forward, yet they push on, yet they're trying to steal this man's property, as in not just what they destroyed, but the land that it was on, in order to compensate for the bill for the demolition that never should have happened in the first place. I keep repeating myself, but I think something this absurd bears repeating. I think something this absurd bears commentary, bears additional emphasis, because many of you out there listening to this, hearing this, would likely believe that this thing should or could never happen, but it absolutely did. And investigations revealed that it happens a bunch of different times in the city of Atlanta, and yet nobody is held to account. Nobody is prosecuted. Nobody's even fired from their job for making this mistake repeatedly. I know that some intern at an office probably probably addressed these letters, addressed these envelopes. I know that somebody probably had a computer error or something like that, but the thing is, if you don't actually get to the root of the problem in this kind of scenario, if you don't actually deal some consequences to the guilty parties, this is going to happen over and over and over again. And if the city of Atlanta is using this as a way to profit themselves, then they're just going to go forward unless we bring attention to this, which is why I am emphasizing this story, covering it again for a second time, because the first video was not enough. The first local news segment was not enough. The hearing was not enough, so we got to stand up for Everett, for his amazing preacher-like cadence, because he needs to be defended. He's trying to do the right thing. He's committed to improving his station in life, and the city of Atlanta is working to keep him down.
After you air the story, after everyone sees it, instead of them fixing the problem, they double down and do it again. It's like after the slap comes the spit in my face. I'm just frustrated.
I cannot disagree at all with Everett's state of mind right there. I think it is the perfect distillation of what's going on. They slapped him across the face, and they actually did far worse. They destroyed the man's home. They destroyed the man's property. They didn't even give him adequate notice. Then they sent him a bill, but they somehow managed to make it worse, and this requires the attention of the American public, of the people of Atlanta, because if it can happen to Everett, it can definitely happen to you. You might think it's down to the corruption in the city of Atlanta, but how comfortable are you trusting the fate of your property to the home of bungling, incompetent government officials? But hey, those are just my thoughts. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you like the video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social media, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the destruction of this Georgia home and the fact that now they're trying to take the property. Till next time.